All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're diving headfirst into a really complex puzzle, one that has literally captivated researchers for decades. We're looking at the factors underlying abnormal behavior. Basically, what actually pushes human behavior over the line into what we call abnormal. When we see someone acting in ways that cause profound distress or dysfunction, we naturally have to ask ourselves, why is this happening?
So you might be wondering, are these behaviors biologically inherited? Are they picked up from our environment, or maybe sparked by some intense external stress? For a really long time, experts debated these as entirely separate, competing causes. But as you'll see in just a minute, the answer isn't just one of these things. It's actually an incredibly intricate, overlapping web of all three.
Here is our roadmap for today. We're going to look at 1. The biological blueprint, 2. The psychological forces, 3. The sociocultural context, and finally 4. The diathesis stress model. Let's start with Section 1, the biological blueprint, exploring the physical body. Our sources show that the biological model treats abnormal behavior essentially as a hardware issue. We're talking about physiological problems, faulty genes, malnutrition, endocrine imbalances, or even physical injuries that actively interfere with a person's development. For instance, while there's no single schizophrenia gene out there, we know for a fact that genetic factors heavily underpin it. Whenever the physical body faces a major trauma or disruption, the behavioral ripple effects can be absolutely profound. And that brings us to chemical messengers in the brain. When neurotransmitter activity goes awry, human behavior fundamentally changes. Just look at these correlations. Low GABA activity is tightly linked to anxiety. An excess of dopamine is a major hallmark of schizophrenia, and low serotonin is a huge driver of depression. It's wild to think about, right? How microscopic chemical imbalances can manifest as these massive shifts in a person's entire reality.
Moving right along to Section 2, the psychological forces, moving from brain to mind.
Because biology definitely doesn't give us the whole picture. The psychodynamic model, which is rooted in Sigmund Freud's work, suggests that abnormal symptoms actually stem from unconscious internal clashes. Imagine you have the id driving your primal urges, the ego trying to be rational, and the superego strictly enforcing moral standards. When these three forces lock horns, often because of unresolved childhood experiences, the resulting abnormal behavior is really just a symbolic expression of that hidden internal war. Now, contrast that with the behavioral model, which tells a totally different story. This is a story of learning and unlearning. Here, maladaptive behaviors aren't about hidden conflicts at all. They're simply acquired responses. Whether it's through classical conditioning, operant reward-based learning, or just socially imitating the people around us, the behavior is learned step by step. But there's a silver lining here. If a behavior is learned, it can absolutely be unlearned. Then we have the cognitive model, which adds another vital layer: how we actually process reality. Imagine a person repeatedly drawing broad negative conclusions from a single event. Like, say you fail one quiz and immediately decide your entire life is a failure. That kind of cognitive distortion takes a massive toll. It's the irrational lens through which they view reality, rather than the reality itself that's causing the distress. Let's zoom out a bit for Section 3. The socio-cultural context, the individual in society. Look, none of us exist in a vacuum, so we have to look at broader societal forces. When a society undergoes rapid change, or when individuals face systemic discrimination, economic struggles, or violence, the psychological burden is immense. These aren't just background details, they're active, incredibly potent stressors. In fact, individuals who lack strong social support networks are significantly more vulnerable to things like prolonged depression. Zooming in just a little bit, our immediate family structure also plays a massive role. Take an enmeshed family system, for example. In this kind of dynamic, boundaries are entirely blurred. Family members are so heavily over-involved in each other's thoughts and feelings that it actually stifles a child's ability to develop normally and independently. We also really have to consider the profound danger of societal labels. When someone breaks social norms and gets repeatedly labeled as deviant or crazy, those labels tend to stick. It creates this tragic, self-fulfilling prophecy, where society treats the person as sick, and the individual, internalizing all of this, actually learns to play into that expected sick role. Which brings us to our final stop, Section 4, the diathesis stress model, the convergence. Okay, realistically, it's almost never just biology, psychology, or society acting on its own. It's the convergence of them all.
To understand how this works, we need to define a word diathesis. This simply means an inherited biological predisposition to a disorder. Due to genetics, someone might have a higher baseline potential for depression or schizophrenia, but, and this is absolutely crucial, having the diathesis doesn't guarantee you'll get the disorder. It just means the vulnerability is there.
This is where all our puzzle pieces finally snap together into a step-by-step formula. Step 1, you have the biological predisposition. Step 2, that creates an inherent vulnerability. But it's step 3, the arrival of severe pathogenic stressors from the psychological or sociocultural environment that ultimately pulls the trigger. The vulnerability requires a massive life stressor to actually evolve into a fully developed psychological disorder. Understanding this intricate converging web leaves us with a profound question about empathy. When we realize that someone struggling with abnormal behavior might be fighting a simultaneous battle against their own genetic code, their learned childhood experiences, and immense societal pressures, well, it becomes impossible to just judge them. Instead, it leaves us asking, how can we build a society that minimizes these triggers and supports these vulnerabilities? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.